All right, so thank you all for being with us today. We've got three awesome special guests with us today, strategic partners of ours that do a lot of business with us and our agents, and I asked them to join us so we could talk about just kind of everything that's happening right now from their side of the business and see if we can't get some tips and some insight from them on what we all need to be doing to really help bulletproof our transactions, bring our clients to close and make sure that we're not hitting any bumps in the road that could be avoided by just being aware of some different things from their side of the real estate transaction. So we have Glenn from Bank of England, we have Jamie Ebling from Berlin, Patten, Ebling, and then we have Sheila and Dave from Peace of Mind Home Inspections. So the format today, we'll spend about between 5 and 10 minutes, give each of those folks some time just to kind of give us a little bit of information about what all's happening on their end, and then we'll do some Q&A from you guys. So have your questions ready, please. Last time we did a vendor call, we did get a little bit tight on time because there were so many questions. So have those questions ready to go around home inspections, around mortgages. There's a lot of changes in the mortgage industry over the last weeks. It seems like every week there's another big change. And then of course around title, Jamie can talk to us about what are some things we can do to really make sure that we're not having any of those issues when we're getting to the closing table, how we can get things buttoned up ahead of time. So just be thinking about those questions. And let's start off with Sheila and Dave from Peace of Mind Home Inspection. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves, I'd love for you to just jump in and give us a little bit of a download on your end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everybody except our speakers. And then if you do have a question, comment, and you want to jump in, just unmute yourself and jump in. That way we don't have a bunch of background noise. So, Sheila and Dave, take it away. Thank you for being with us.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate it. And first and foremost, I'd like to say we really appreciate everyone's support. Not only during this time is very important and critical to everyone, but in the past and in the future, we do appreciate that.
Good morning, everyone. You want to start? Basically, what's going on for us right now is we are staying steady. We're actually staying busy, which is great in these times. But we're picking up some work from, some inspectors aren't feeling safe to be out there. So we're actually getting business from other inspectors sending their business to us. The main thing we have done is we had a meeting with our inspectors and our staff, first off, to make sure they still felt safe to work, and basically went over what we wanted to do. They all said, yes, they still want to work. So we're open for the duration. But we are asking when we do the inspections, we can't make it happen, but we do request, if the seller cannot be there or the buyers or even the agents would really like the house to be empty for our inspectors. But if you must attend, we are asking them to, do the 6 foot or greater distancing. We'll go over the reports, we'll go over our findings, we'll walk everyone through and around the house like we normally would. We just want to maintain that 6 foot clearance for our sake, our inspector's sake, their families, and you as well. They do have the authority that if people are not maintaining that safety zone and they feel they are in a hazardous situation, that they can call the office and stop the inspection. So it's very, very important to make sure everyone knows at least maintain that 6 foot distancing. They're wearing gloves, they have masks, they have booties, they have Lysol wipes, so they're using them as needed to make sure, again, everything is safe and compliant. We were actually having them go through and take what we have, it's a COVID-19 class. So we're making sure all inspectors are taking those classes, are getting actually certified as on the COVID-19 protection and safety standards.
And is that something you've communicated out to the agents that work with you? Because I know from a seller's perspective, right, a lot of sellers are nervous about doing showings, right? That's why they're doing a lot of virtual showings. A lot of sellers are nervous about maybe doing as many open houses, having people coming in the home, which again, we can do virtually. A home inspection we can't do virtually, and that's critical to the home buying process. So, I mean, you mentioned they're wearing their booties, they're wearing their gloves, that kind of thing. What would you tell our agents to to communicate to their clients to reassure them that, look, we have to get the inspection done. That's a critical piece of the real estate transaction that cannot be done virtually. However, you know, my partners that I work with at Peace of Mind Home Inspection, you know, here's what they're doing to make sure that you're protected through that process. What would you say the agent should be communicating to them?
Well, one thing we are going to try to push out on Facebook, the COVID-19 certification. So all the agents that we are working with, or the agents that we may be working with here in the near future, no, those are the standards we're operating by. But what I would suggest to them is for the sellers, for the other agents, you know, just to let them know, hey, the inspection company that has been chosen or that we would like to work with has taken the appropriate classes and has been certified to have the credentials that they are a COVID-19 certificated company and that they are operating by the standards of the COVID-19 course or standards. And that we feel their health and everyone's health is the most important thing out of all. But like you say, it has to be done physically, not visually. And in some cases, you know, checking plumbing to see if it's leaking after running a sink, they can't have a glove on to rub those pipes or to rub the bottom of the cabinet to see if water is leaking. So they do have to take a glove off every now and then, but they try to sanitize everywhere they can.
Okay. And have you seen any changes on your end as far as scheduling or lead time for appointments, or is that all kind of business as usual for guys? Because you said all of your inspectors are still in the field. So is your capacity fine, you know, as far as scheduling and everything goes?
Oh yeah, business as usual, and we will get your inspection done within the period of time needed. We can handle the inspections coming in plus some, because we are, you know, we are a 7-day-a-week company, and we don't really have an open and close time.
Right.
The hours may say open at 8, but we actually work beyond 5, 6 o'clock at night. We try to schedule no later than 5 p.m. because of daylight times. And of course, now that Manatee County's put in that curfew, we got to make sure our inspections get back in time, be within those standards as well. But we will make the inspection happen in the time needed. One of the main things you should, you know, when you're looking around or setting up an inspection, you may want to ask a few more questions, because right now, if we have to get contractors out there, contractors aren't as easy to get out right now. But like we just did a very large home that had a very large generator on it. And of course, they wanted the generator fully inspected. It was difficult to get a electrical contractor out there that handles Generac generators within that inspection period. So you may want to ask, does your home have generators? Does your house have any sort of specialty thing that's not normally seen in a home inspection? Elevators, generators, septic systems. If the house is, you know, over 30 years old, you may want to consider just right off the bat preparing for a camera scoping of the sewer lines, especially if the homes have the old cast iron pipes. So those are all things. Now you need to kind of prepare in advance for additional inspections to make sure they can be done within the time limits.
And I'd just like to add on the 4-point, just adding on to that as well. I was on a call just not long ago with Barry Grooms on behalf of Florida Realtors, and they're also reviewing like the 4-point issues, and it is hard to get contractors out sometimes, especially for doing non-emergency work. So they're looking from the Florida Realtor side on exceptions that may be able to be made in the future. Now, the tricky part is if the insurance is going to be able to comply with that as well. So we're awaiting news or further information on that. So we'll keep you updated as we get information.
Yeah, if you guys get anything that's obviously pertinent to the agents, you know, or even just tips and tricks that you might have, feel free to send those to the staff at the office, and we'll make sure those get distributed out to everyone. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that, guys. We're going to do some Q&A at the end. So let's shift over to Jamie over at Berlin, Patten, Ebling. And Jamie, so from your side of the business with getting contracts from from contract to close, right? Getting them to the closing table, making sure we have a smooth transaction. Either what are you seeing on your end, or what's some advice you'd have for the agents to make sure that they're bulletproofing that transaction as they move their clients through?
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. There's two things that we're primarily dealing with. It's kind of a pre-contract phase is how do you go to contract? What do you do? How do you make, how do you conduct an inspection? Are the lenders set up for RON closings? And I'll get into that in a second. And then are you using the proper addendums? I don't know if anybody gets our blog out there, but we put out a COVID addendum blog, I'd say about 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. I also know that, FAR and FAR-BAR also have their own blogs. I gotta tell you, I'm not a big fan of them. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I'm just not a big fan. So take a look at those blogs, talk to your broker, see which one works for you and your client. That's the first step. The second step is once you're under contract, how do we get to the closing table? Because that's been probably our biggest fear, is whether or not somebody can get from New Jersey to here. Somebody can get from New York to here, which isn't really happening these days. And frankly, even if somebody's going to come from Manatee County to Sarasota to close, or from Tampa to Sarasota to close, it's been an issue. So what we've done in our office is we have appointments only. And the reason for that is we're trying to lessen the traffic in our office. Obviously, that's going to reduce any sort of risk that's out there. We have our office cleaned 3 times a day by somebody who comes around with the proper antiviral sprays and just literally wipes everything down 3 times a day. We do have masks in the office, Purell pretty much in every room, and Lysol in every room. So I think people are well protected when they walk in. With regards to our staffing, we don't have everybody currently working in the office at the same time. We rotate people through our office so people feel safe. And if somebody were to get sick, it doesn't infect the entire operation. It only infects possibly those people that a particular member of our staff was around. So those are our contingency plans right now. But with regards to the closing process, I did mention RON. RON is short for remote online notarization. Everyone's probably heard of that, and if you haven't, learn about it, because that's something that we're starting to do now. There's 2 parts to RON. One, you have to be RON certified. So not every notary is RON certified. You actually have to take a course online. And there's a lot more work behind being a notary when you're RON certified versus being a typical notary. Basically, everything's done through the computer. Eventually, you'll get to the phone, but everything's done through the computer. And once you're RON certified, you sign up for a program. And in our case, we signed up for a program named Pavaso. There are other ones out there, but that's the one that we signed up for. Pavaso is essentially a software program that allows the seller or the buyer or yourselves to log in on the other end. You could be anywhere in the world and see us. So you get to see, unfortunately it's me, but the notary. And we get a chance to ask you questions. We get a chance to look at your ID. We essentially are vetting you are who you say you are. That Pavaso program allows you to sign on the screen. And that electronic notarization can be utilized for mortgages, deeds, and the like. Now, not every lender is currently certified through RON. They're not allowing RON signings. There are a good amount that are moving that way, especially in today's climate. And then there are some that allow some documents to be signed via RON, and other ones that require a wet signature. I do think in the next 30, 60 days, you're going to see a lot of lenders moving towards the RON program. And, we are currently set up. I don't know how many people in the state of Florida are set up, but I know we were one of the first. So we're very fortunate that we kind of got ahead of that. But even though we're ahead of it, everything else hasn't caught up. So lenders are catching up, clerks of courts are catching up, software companies are catching up. So it's one of those things that it's an unfortunate circumstance we're in, but it's going to change the way we do closings from here on out.
Okay. And are you seeing any hurdles coming up with agents that are trying to get closings to the table that they could be proactive about and prepare for as they're moving people through the transaction?
The biggest thing is whether or not somebody can get here, or whether or not somebody has either tested positive for COVID or has been around somebody who's tested. So there's a question that's out there, and we've had some debates with some other law firms locally as to whether or not COVID triggers this force majeure clause. We don't believe it does. You can still do a closing. You can still get financing. It doesn't make, it makes the closing process more difficult, but it doesn't prevent it from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, if somebody has COVID, there could be the impossibility of performance, which is a legal term. So if somebody can't physically get here, they're too sick, or somebody frankly just doesn't want to be around somebody that's been sick and touching all over the documents, I don't think any judge in the world is going to sit there and say, you know, that person's in default. So I think that if somebody is sick, or somebody has truly been around somebody that's sick and they're in self-isolation due to just confirming if they have symptoms, I think most people would be amenable to delaying closing or pushing it out, you know, for a certain period of time. So the biggest thing we're seeing right now is whether somebody's been around somebody who's been sick. That's probably been the biggest. We've had a few people that had tested positive, but we ended up not having them come in, pushed out the closing date. So those were essentially non-issues within the office until they tested negative about 14, 15 days later. So that's probably the biggest thing right now we're seeing.
Okay. So to recap, you guys are doing appointment only at the office. So for people that maybe can't do remote activities, or they do want to do it in person, you have a process for that, right? You're keeping your office sterile. You're making it available in the cases that it needs to be used, but you're also capable of doing the remote process. So for the agents, it sounds like, you know, and we'll talk to Glenn here in a second, but are the other people, parties to your transaction, are they able to do the remote process right now? And if not, that's okay. Like Jamie said, many people are working on it. It sounds like, do they have a process in place for making sure the transaction happens? Do you have any other things you'd like to add, or should I go to Glenn and then we can do some Q&A?
I think the last thing I would add is if it's a cash transaction, we would prefer to do it electronically. And I think most people would as well. There are a few old schools that want to come into the office, shake a hand, but we've been pretty good about counseling them about not doing that. If they do come in our office, we typically are putting the documentation on the table. We have glass doors. If anything is being notarized, we can stand behind those glass doors to watch them notarize it. We let them sign everything, and about 20, 30 minutes later, we will then come up, pick up the documents, and I'll ask if they have any questions, and that's really it. So I can give you more information over the phone and through email than I'm probably going to give you in person at this point in time.
Sure. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's shift over to Glenn. Glenn, let me unmute you real quick.
All right.
So I know the mortgage market's been probably the most affected, other than real estate, right? The mortgage market's been affected with just all the volatility and you know, different things with government-backed loans and whatever, and mortgage-backed securities. So when we talked to Dusty a week or two back on one of these calls, he was telling us a little bit about you know, credit requirements getting tightened up, and I know since then there's been some weirdness on some of the government-backed loans. So can you just tell us what our agents should be aware of, and what they should be communicating to their clients that maybe wasn't super relevant this time a few weeks ago? And then also what processes are you guys putting in place to make sure we can get deals financed, get them closed, not have those delays and bumps in the road?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I got a list of about 10 things to talk about here, but we'll try to answer your questions at the same time.
Okay.
I guess first of all, not as far as, you know, the local branch here for Bank of England, we've always been just in one tight area here. So we have our own underwriter, our own closer. So we're not really being affected as, say, the national branch is. The guys went out and bought scanners for all the processors a couple weeks ago and said, go home and work from home. And everything in the mortgage business is pretty much all electronic. You know, when I get in an application, I just press a button and send it to them. So there's a couple little slowdowns in there, but pretty much we're working as usual. We had a record month last month, so we're pretty happy with that. But we are expecting to see some slowdown in the purchase business, obviously. We are making that up with some refis that are going on, but we're telling the refis, listen, we're going to tell you we're going to be 45 to 60 days on your refi. If it happens sooner, we'll make it sooner, but we don't want that to get in the way of the purchase business. We want the purchase business always to be priority 1 through 10, you know, in everything we're doing. The same line, we're telling agents, try to write your offers for 45 days or before, because what's going on is, even if we're moving as fast as we can, with the little delays, we're not getting IRS transcripts fast. Bills are taking longer because they're jammed up with finances. There's outside influences in there that slow some things down, and extra processes that are coming to a place as well. So on the appraisal, they have made some changes from Fannie Mae and FHA. They are allowing in a lot of cases just do an exterior inspection. So they don't have to go in the home. That's something that you can use to people. That's the last person to roll through their house. And, you know, so that's
Hey, Glenn, you're breaking up.
Oh, okay. I don't know what to do on that.
Try muting yourself and then unmuting yourself just to reset the audio. See if that helps.
I'm back. We'll try.
No, it's still, you're still breaking up a little bit. Well, just let's see if we can get through it. If not, you might have to jump off the call and reconnect, but let's just see if we can get through it. So.
I can try. Yeah, I can on my phone later. Okay, so appraisals, do an exterior on that. Some changes in the market out there. Obviously, as you mentioned, the mortgage industry flipped upside down. We're changing minute by minute what's going on. You're going to see a variety of rates. If you talk to different, you might see rates all over the board because they might have already made changes, and then one of the competition might make their changes tomorrow. We're all being affected by it. Big guys or small guys. The mortgage industry, they're not as hard for business, and part of that is, hey, if we just did a loan a week ago, and that guy worked for a bank, and there's a good chance he might be laid off this week. Do you really want to invest in that mortgage? So that's, there's a lot of skepticism on the investment side and affecting everyone selling mortgages, and that's everyone from the Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Bank of England, small broker, everyone. If you want to spend a couple hours and look at what's going on online with the mortgage industry, you can take a look and see there's just a lot of changes going on. A couple things you should know. So worrying about credit scores. Some of your customers that might have 640, 620 credit score that was looking to buy, they may have to wait until later on this year or next year to buy to build their score a little better because there's less demand for weaker credit. So that's going on there. Jumbos, I don't know if you've seen any advertising that a lot of jumbo loans are dropping out. So we've been doing, we still have markets out there that we've been doing, and we even doing a lot of sort of 500,000 first, 200,000 second, and put a loan together that way. So still have all the conduits to do that, and that's worked for a lot of customers anyway. So we're still using that sort of method if we get into pricing. So we still for that. Verification. So obviously people are losing hours, people are losing jobs. If someone loses their job prior to closing, they're probably not going to close. And we don't know how to prevent anything with that. We're actually doing verifications of employment the day of closing. So if someone's trying to schedule a 9 o'clock closing, we're calling there, we're saying make it maybe more like 9:30 because we have to call and say, are they still working there today? Because there's been cases where that's not, where people have lost their jobs, we don't know. So that might be a delay you're seeing out there when doing a closing, so bear with us. We're making changes as we're going along. Another thing I just added in is there's another form. Have you asked for forbearance on your current loan? So maybe they have a home up north and they're trying to buy down here, or they're selling their current home and trying to buy a new one. Have you asked for a forbearance with your lender? And we don't know the ramifications of that yet. So it may be something to warn your clients out there and say, listen, if you're asking for a forbearance, just want to go through it just for the heck of it, you don't really need it, you're not in a pinch, we would recommend do not do it because it could affect your credit, and there may be a waiting time. After you get out of forbearance, there could be, if you want to get a new mortgage, you may have to wait 6 months or a year. So don't do it if you have to, if you're feeling pinched, obviously, with your lender and deal with that. But some people are looking just to do it, just say, I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon, and that could hurt them in the future. So be careful with that. And I guess the final thing, some good note is I did see that Kathy Polito's on the call. You know, we were just working on a second home buyer. They actually got remote, and they fell into multiple offers. They lost the first house. I think there was 5 or 6 offers. The second home, the same thing, but we got that one. So that's good news. I mean, it's up sort of like north of Bradenton area. It's 165,000 range, and they had, like I said, 5 or 6 offers. So that was a really great thing. So that's it for me. I'll look for some questions after.
We can't hear you, Kieran.
Sorry. Forgot I muted myself. I have to jump off the call at 9 for a regional call, but Lauren's going to facilitate some Q&A if I have to jump off early. But let's open that up now, because I know a lot of you guys probably have specific questions that maybe you're running into around mortgage inspection, you know, title, any of that sort of stuff. We've got 3 great resources here right this second. And Glenn, I would just say maybe try stopping your video and just going audio. That might help with the bandwidth, because with breaking up a little bit. But you'll still be able to talk just on audio. So yeah, let's open it up, guys. Just unmute yourself. If you do have some questions, jump right in, and we'll get through them. We'll take a few minutes to do that.
Hey, this is Jamie. Glenn, I have a quick question for you. We've had some situations where people under the contract receive their loan approval. And your point was well taken that you verify employment on the day of. And obviously, if they don't have a job, or in our instance, it wasn't the fact that they lost a job, it's the fact that their liquidity dropped so much because of market conditions that their debt to income ratio was off. Is that something you guys are also looking at, is debt to income ratios? You know, let's say they were still employed, but their losses in the stock market tremendously affected their ability to afford this home. Is that something you're also looking at?
I haven't run into that instant yet. Obviously, yeah, we are checking their employment. I haven't heard of anyone going back and looking at their assets again. But I guess it would be the circumstance if they, if we're using that income to qualify them. If we say, okay, you have 300 grand sitting in an IRA and we're using 5 grand a month for income, it may be revisited from, you know, 2 weeks ago when we got a statement. So it could very well be, we kind of leave that standard verbiage in all our, you know, approvals that say, you know, we still have to, you have to get approved at the end. You still have to have a job. We can re-verify assets. So it could be something that could affect it. I mean, I hadn't thought of that, but that's a new one. That's you know, another unprecedented moment.
Sure. And we've also seen it where somebody's had the job. Obviously, they maybe didn't have too many stock. Their stock portfolio was smaller, but they had a loss of income. So their income dropped 20%, which also affected their ability to afford the loan, which they were denied as well. So, you know, obviously we're trying to figure out addendums and drafting techniques now so we can prevent defaults later. And that's the reason I asked that question. Yeah, because I understand that you'd pass sort of the drop dead date for the money going hard, but then if they lose their job after that, that sounds like a, you know, another legal issue going on there. Yes.
Thank you for that, Jamie. And it didn't sound like anyone else wanted to jump in with any questions. So
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thanks, panelists, for being a part of our Zoom call. Appreciate all the information. Glenn, specifically talking about income verification, what if you go to verify somebody's income and they have had a reduction in hours, which affects their income? How's that going to look? You know, maybe they need to pay off a couple of credit cards or something like that to shore up their income to debt ratio, or can you kind of tell me how that would happen in a matter of 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, if we do the same day verification that we've been doing and that comes in where they've dropped from 40 hours to 30 hours, we're going to have to rerun the numbers and see what happens. And yeah, I mean, we look to try to regroup on those and say, okay, can we pay something off? Can we move something around to make it work? I had one where the buyer last week lost their, you know, the buyer on their home fell out. we were able to regroup everything, get a gift from mom and dad, closed, 2 days later. So we're always, we're going to try to be as adaptable as possible in these moments. We know we're a moving target. So, we're going to try to handle problems as they come along. And we think we've got the people in the background to help, help do the best we can.
Thank you.
Glenn, it's Maureen. Quick question for you. What's your response time with the IRS right now?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know the exact numbers on that. I know in some cases we've asked clients to go themselves on the IRS and pull up the transcripts themselves. I don't know. I haven't heard the exact numbers on that, but I can get back to you guys and send a.
Yeah, that would be important to, I know agents keep asking me if they should extend the days for a loan. And I tell them to speak to the lender, but I know I'm having an argument myself right now with the IRS and can't speak to anybody. So I just want to know how that's impacting loans.
So that's one option they can do. They can go online and pull their own transcripts. So they just have to sign on the IRS. Then IRS will ask, if anyone hasn't done that before, IRS will ask questions. Did you ever live at 123? And if you lived at 456 Main Street, just say no. And they're testing to see they have background on you. You have to answer, 5 or questions or something like that about your who you are, so they make sure they got the correct person, and then you can sign in and do some of that stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions? Looks like Kieran had to get off and go to his other call, so it's just me now.
That's Glenn. I'm going to just add a couple more things here. As far as, I don't know if you've heard, but if people are doing, 1 year out of foreclosure, or they've got, bad credit, or they're doing a bank statement loan, those loans have just stopped. They have just totally stopped right now. We'll see, there's going to be a day they're going to turn back on the faucet for that again. But right now, those have just stopped. They had people that were trying to buy homes that were 2 days away from closing, and they just said, no, we're not doing your loan. So those, they call non-QM or BC credit loans, those have pretty much been put on the back burner by all the lenders out there. It's sort of like they're 2008 all over again. So hopefully we'll see those come back. They might come back in 3 months or 6 months. We'll let you know once we've got sort of the green light on those.
Great. Anyone else have anything, either last questions or last comments?
I got it. Yes, I'd like to add one other piece of information. Sheila and Dave again. On any special testing like mold testing, FHA water testing that needs to be sent to a lab, we were informed this week that FedEx and UPS are not guaranteeing their deliveries going forward. So when we were able to express and get guaranteed under 24 hours, that's not the case anymore. So if you do have any specialized testing, just take that into account. We have an instance of a VA that's requiring the extended water testing. We do have the ability to either courier or drive it to the lab ourselves. If we do that, there's just some added costs to do that. It's about an 8-hour round trip, but we are prepared to do that if we need to get those transactions moving. And that's for all specialized lead-based paint, asbestos, mold testing, water testing, defective drywall, things like that. So if you run across those during this time, give us a call and we'll do everything we can to get that expedited into the lab and those results turned around as quickly as possible.
Great, that's awesome. Okay, everyone, so if we don't have anything else, I'm going to again thank our vendors for coming on this call. We really appreciate all that you contributed to make sure that our agents know what's going on in the market and know what's going on with their vendors. And that's why we partner with you guys, because you keep us all informed and we really appreciate everything that you do. So I'm going to go ahead and end the call. Again, if anyone has any questions or needs anything else throughout the day, Kieran and the rest of the staff is available. And I'm assuming all of the vendors are available, phone calls, emails, all of that fun stuff as well. So if you think of any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.